Welcome back. You're watching Global Lens. We have been discussing Trump's new tariffs on 92 countries. Joining us now on the show is Ashok Malik, partner at the Asia Group. Thank you very much for being with us. What, according to you, Mr. Malik, as someone who's been a close watcher of India-US ties over the past few decades, as someone who heads one of the biggest advocacy groups of the United States here in India, what do you think are India's options?
The first option is not to react to the intemperate language that President Trump has used in the past few days in any manner. Do not engage with the same rhetoric, which the Foreign Ministry and the Commerce Ministry have not. The MEA and the Commerce Ministry have maintained their dignity. They have stated their positions and kept to that. My understanding is the offer the Indians have made this time is one of the most ambitious trade offers India has ever made to any country. Perhaps we can do better. Perhaps the negotiations could have led to more concessions. I agree. But quite honestly, no country can negotiate with a gun held to its head. And what the language used in recent days, in the past 48 hours or so, is an affront to Indian dignity, to be honest with you. And I don't think in these conditions, India will come up with more concessions immediately. There has to be a deeper, more meaningful conversation. So I expect some, resolute Indian silence in the coming days, and we'll have to live with the consequences.
Right.
In the immediate future.
How do you think US can convince India can convince US about the need for India to maintain a robust relationship with Russia as well? You know, we've been speaking to various experts. We can increase our energy imports from US and defense imports from US, but we can't cut off that relationship. Where are you going to get those spares from? And even if you were to increase your energy imports from US, you cannot completely cut off Russia from the market, from the global oil market.
See, there are several things here. One, many of these issues have been discussed threadbare with successive US governments, including with the Republican government of President Trump over the years, and they completely understand that. When it comes to the Russian crude purchases, which we've been making, which we began making at a time when there was a limit to energy availability in the country, in the world. I'm sorry, because Europe was starting to buy oil and gas from our traditional suppliers in the Middle East and the Gulf, and therefore we had to turn to Russia. Otherwise, oil prices would have shot up to $180 a barrel or close to thereabouts. And the crude oil which we defined was used by Europe, was used by the UK, it was used by the West as well. It was recognized, the US government of the day recognized it. Quite frankly, till a few weeks ago, Trump recognized it. Again, when it comes to defense purchases, we have been diversifying. Successive governments, including this one, have been diversifying. We don't buy as much Russian or former Soviet equipment as we used to. We don't buy platforms of them. We hardly buy platforms of them now. And again, we started depending on Russian weapon supplies or defense platform supplies because there was a US embargo many years ago. There's a history to that. To be honest, successive governments in recent years in Washington, successive administrations have understood that. Even Trump seemed to understand it. Trump's officials understand it. Trump's political appointees understand it. So there's no question of having to persuade people. People know the story. Trump has decided not to know it because he's having a problem with Putin right now. Putin is not giving him the comfort and the deal he wants in Ukraine. Why Putin is not doing that is between Putin and Trump. We have no say in the matter. We can't influence Putin, Ukraine, or Zelensky or Trump on that matter. But we are, in a sense, suffering collateral damage.
Yeah.
What the problem is not India's defense purchases or oil purchase. The problem is Trump has an axe to grind with Putin. He's taking it out on us.
Right. And he's getting frustrated there as well. It's a message to Russia, too. What if a trade deal does not happen with the United States at all?
Look, it is a challenge. There's no question that it is a challenge because a 25% tariff structure will affect our export competitiveness. More than current exports, it will also mean that the tariff advantage we had hoped for, especially vis-a-vis Vietnam and China, in specific sectors where we hoped supply chains would move to India or factories would move to India, like uh, electronics, iPhones, mobile phone, not just iPhones, but mobile phones more generally, electronic manufacture, toy manufacture, shoes and footwear, garments and textiles, uh, in sports goods, for instance, in those areas where we had hoped that a significant or sufficient tariff advantage over Vietnam, for instance, would see some investment coming to India. That is not likely to happen in the near future. It might happen in the long term, but it won't happen in the near future. And it obviously does not see a tariff advantage that it can exploit. So there is a problem. And there is no demand sink for the world like there is America. And this is a challenge which all of America's big economic partners and the big exporters to America, whether for goods or services, are grappling with. Uh, Having said that, my understanding is the trade offer India has put at the table is extremely attractive. Uh, it, yes, there are some issues that Trump is still concerned about. He wants India to buy wheat, he wants India to buy milk and milk powder, which we can't do. But again, India is not unique. Every country has red lines. Try selling rice to Japan, try selling uh, meat to the EU, try selling agricultural produce to Australia, you will run into problems. Uh, Next, GM crops, for instance, we have problems importing GM crops for human consumption. Can we import GM crops for, let's say, ethanol production? Perhaps we can. But those are relatively minor issues. That is give and take at the negotiating table, which can even happen in subsequent negotiations. Because remember, we've only more or less tried to finalize tranche 1A. There's tranche 1B of the BTA, of the bilateral trade agreement. Then there's the second tranche, there's the broader agreement. We haven't even opened the chapter on digital commerce yet. We're still talking about goods. And goods is frankly yesterday's story. Tomorrow's story in terms of
Right.
Indo-US trade is digital goods. It's e-commerce. It's data. It's
Okay.
all of that. We haven't even opened that. There's the
Right.
sky's the limit there. So
And those would
there's a
probably
lot we
be
can
more,
do.
those would be the negotiations, digital commerce and services will perhaps be even more difficult, is what we are given to understand. Mr. Malik,
Of course, there
you
will
know,
be.
your EU is watching our negotiations with US very closely. They're wanting to see whether we'll give concessions on agriculture and dairy. Now, successive US administrations have been wanting India to open up the agri and dairy sector. We are saying that there are religious sentiments. We're saying that, you have to keep in mind national interest and farmers and agriculture. All of that is understandable. But considering what's at stake with a partnership with United States, can we allow the relationship to falter, the strategic relationship to get derailed because we don't want to compromise on agriculture and dairy? So what's going to be the set off, so to say? Where do we decide that, yes, we need to make a compromise? Do you think somewhere we need to start thinking long term about how do we want our relations with US to be in the next 10 to 15 years? Because what we're also told that if a trade deal does not happen, these tariffs could stick and the relations between India and the United States could go down for many more years.
Look, you asked multiple questions there. One, any trade deal, any deal of any nature does call for mutual compromise. So yes, all of what you're saying uh, is important for India. It's certainly true, but it's equally true for the US. Does the US president want to be the man who lost India because he couldn't export GM crops or GM food to India or beef to India? I mean, is it really going to come down to that? Uh, I don't think even the EU expects India to open up its dairy market or its wheat market to the EU as part of a trade deal. Uh, Certain types of cheese, for instance, certain types of fruit, certain types of nuts, edible oil, perhaps, if it's not GM edible oil. Yes, all of that can happen, certainly can happen. But every country has some red lines. Uh, Coming to the strategic importance of the relationship, it is our most important relationship, just as the India relationship is one of the US's most important relationships. Uh, and Perhaps in time, President Trump will come to recognize that some deal is better than no deal. You know, do remember, we've signed a deal with the UK. India is not the world's largest market, but India is still a considerable market. We've signed a deal with the UK which gives Scotch a market advantage over bourbon. Someone in Kentucky who wants to sell bourbon to India is holding his head right now and saying, what is Washington doing? Scotland and the UK have an advantage. So it works both ways.
Right, right. Mr. Malik, wonderful talking to you. Of course, there are lots of moving pieces to this puzzle, and we've not heard the last of this. There will be
Absolutely.
more comments from the Trump administration, and hopefully, you never know, there might be a conversation between Prime Minister Modi and President Trump as well, and we could see a solution. But currently, it's all in the realm of the unknown. Thank you for being with
Well,
us. That's all.
with President Trump, it's not just every day is a new day, every hour is a new hour. So
Right, of course. Thank you so much, Mr. Malik, for being with
thank
us.
you.
That's all we have time for here on Global Lens. Goodbye.